Welcome to the Practice Podcast, conversations probing the nature of practice. I'm your host, Dave Fearon. Well, I just finished a conversation with John Hibbs. Wow, that was sheer fun. I've always had a fascination with humans being organizations, and John Hibbs is a co-founder of Coefficient, which is a company that's written and continually revises software which gets into the inner aspects of humans being a business from the perspective of each of the humans who are being a particular business, and giving readouts which then people who lead these businesses can use to provide better direction for those people. Now, I don't know if I've done any justice at all to what John Business Coefficient is doing, but that's how I took it, and I took it well. I think they're on to something. He and his partners are on to something. It's time for us to finally break the code on why almost 80% of the workforce around the world is not really very well engaged by choice in their enterprise, whatever that may be. They're showing up, they're doing a job, but they're not growing the business. It's a mutual thing, folks. I grow, therefore my business grows. My business grows and brings me into the jet stream, and I grow. So yeah, this is John Hibbs. A very interesting accent, by the way. He talking to me from the Island of Guernsey, which is off the coast of England. I got to go to a map now and learn exactly where John is, but it's been delightful to talk with him. John Hibbs. Well, here I am, folks, combing the world for conversations about the nature of practice. And so as I've combed through the shores of the United Kingdom, I've come to the Island of Guernsey. And lo and behold, I have someone to have a wonderful conversation with, and you're going to hear it. And this is John Hibbs.
Hello,
John,
Dave.
Thank you for having me in your home virtually. You are the practitioner who probably has a business card that's erasable, so you can continually add some new descriptions of who you are and what you do. But what's your current self-designation, your professional one?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, and yes, welcome to sunny Guernsey. And it's
it's lovely here.
The weather can be a bit tumultuous, but today it's great, blue skies, and the sun's beaming down. Yes, thank you. So I currently founded and run a company called Coefficient, and what we do is we measure organizational performance, but from the human perspective. And
I want to add right here, folks, you'd think that would be obvious. It isn't, because so many of the so-called scientific ways that we've tried to find out about how people perform in organizations, they quickly turn into digits, numbers as subject A, and there's so much effort to pull human nature out of the equation so that they can make nice, clean predictions about how the organization is going to perform. And I'm being a little facetious, John, because when you and I first met at one of our Zoom calls where we meet each other from around the world, I thought, now that is cool. Coefficient, human, he's got both of them going, digital and the human.
Yeah, so that's absolutely right. So just to give you a bit of background about how this kind of came to life, so I'm 48 years old now. My life has been a starting and building and failing and succeeding at running businesses, and I've learned quite a lot. The three sort of takeaways the big takeaways I've got is businesses are always groups of people. They're groups of people trying to solve a human problem for some other people, and so that's number one. Two is businesses, as in life, they are always a chain of events. A nice word that I only discovered recently, skein, which means a ball of yarn, a ball of thread, but it also means a collection of interconnected events, or a thread of interconnected events. And that's what a business is. And what businesses measure currently and usually are the outcomes of those events.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Profit.
So they measure profit.
Loss.
Exactly. And so when I was running my businesses, I was like, okay, this is great that we're measuring this stuff at the end of the chain of events, but wouldn't it be cool if we can measure something earlier on in the chain of events? Because that could act like an early warning system for what's going to happen later. I was never clever enough, other than really, really simple metrics, to design something that could do that very well. And then a few years ago, I was lucky enough to meet a chap. He's got a PhD from Oxford University, very smart guy, and we were doing a project together, and we got to talking. And yeah, I mean, he's just on another level, clever. And I kept wondering why on earth he was even talking to me. But
I know people like that too.
we got on. We had some good conversations, and I started to talk about how this chain of events and early warning, and can we get some metrics at the sort of like human end of the chain of events. And he was like, yeah, I could build something like that really easy. Well, not really easy, but yeah, easily enough.
He got it though. He got what you were looking for.
Yeah, he got it. So then we very sort of quickly, a few months, built a platform, a working prototype, and I went out to 10 or 12 local companies here in Guernsey to say, would you try this? Just give it a go for free. Give us some feedback and tell us what you think. And three interesting things happened, Dave. First of all, the business owners half the business owners that were trialing it said, wow, this is amazing. This is exactly what I thought was going on. I could feel it in my gut. And now I can see it with like graphs and pictures and numbers. Amazing. Thank you so much. The other group said, what the hell? This isn't what's going on in my company. I don't believe it. This isn't right. This isn't right at all. Which was interesting. So we then unpicked things and started interviewing the staff and realized that actually the data was right. And that was, so inspiring for the business leaders, because I like, well, how could I be thinking about my business or feeling about my business so wrong or so differently to my staff? But the third thing that happened that was across the board and really surprised me was all the business leaders said, hey, look, this is great data. What do we do with it?
Yes.
Like, what's next?
Yes.
And I had not expected that question at all. So
what was it, a scientific experiment on your part at that point? Is that how they saw it and you saw it?
No, not really. I saw it as, well, I suppose we were talking in scientific terms, some of us at some points, but I really thought it was obvious what to do with it, and I suppose my background has always been, well, let's have a look at some data and then let's have a discussion and a workshop and start talking and thinking about what we do with it. That's just what I did. So when people said to me, yep, I don't know what to do with it. And that was kind of like the end of the conversation. I was like, okay. So now Coefficient didn't want to be and we still don't want to be a consultancy firm or an advisory firm. We want to focus on the data, and we think we handle and deal with data and present it really, really well. So that's what we want to focus on. Mm-hmm. So I went and I spoke to some friendly business consultants and some coaches and said, hey, look, we've been doing some work with some businesses here. We've analyzed their performance from the perspective of their staff. Can you go and have a look at the data and help them out and maybe give them some action plans? And they said, yeah. So that was cool. Pretty cool. And I was pleased with myself because I was, I solved that problem. Aren't I clever? And then the business coaches said to me, hey, you know what, John, we like this platform. Can we use it with some of the businesses that we're already working with? And I was like, that is such a clever idea.
It didn't even occur to you at first when you asked them to give you a little beta work there? No, it's like,
didn't even occur to me.
I love that. I love the surprises that you're finding along the way here in this story. Yeah.
And of course, that relationship just works so much better because, you know, as you said at the start, it's nothing's ever purely about data. Nothing's ever purely about humans. You've got to have that combination working together. So
that's right.
What we've got now is we work with coaches 95% of the time. We work via coaches, and it's brilliant because the coaches introduce us to the companies they're working with. We get the companies to pay for the data. We share the revenue with the coaches. The coaches analyze the data. They go back to their companies and say, look, I know what's going on inside your company. We've got some data to back that up as well. Let's create a plan that's tailored and suits you. Because as you know, Dave, there are a million different businesses with a million different leaders and a million different cultures and a million different ways of doing things. And they're all fine. You can do things in a million different ways. So you really need that human element and that human touch to translate the data effectively into an action plan that suits company A, because it's going to be different to company B.
Yeah, and company A wants to be better than company B in regard to all measures. And these days, I think you and I first talked about that when we first met. One of the most important things that they want to be better at is having the very best employees that they can find in the marketplace, virtually as well as on the ground.
Yeah.
And in order to execute any of the changes. So I have two thoughts that come to mind. First, what if they discovered with your survey that they already have some damn fine employees, but they never really thought of them that way or never saw that they had more potential than they were actually using? Wouldn't that be something? So it isn't all about let's go out and recruit and replace these dullards. No, they're not dull. They just are fixed in positions where they can't show their stuff. Is that my imagination, or do you find things like that where they're actually discovering a lot more value in their current workforce than one might assume?
So a couple of points on that. Of course, it's hugely expensive to recruit people.
And lose them.
Yeah. Oh, you don't want to lose staff, and you don't want to really recruit staff because it just costs an absolute arm and a leg. I've found that most people want to do a job they enjoy, and they want to go to work and enjoy what they're doing, and they want the business to succeed. And often when people are moaning or complaining about stuff, it comes across as sort of feels negative, but really what they're saying is, I've got an idea about how to do this better. Let me tell you about it. And one of the things that our platform does is allows staff to have a voice to say, look, I've got an idea here. Let me say it. So you definitely do get more value out of your staff if you listen to them. And if you can hold on to them and they don't want to leave, and then you don't have to replace them, you're saving money in that regard as well. Should be a win-win, in fact.
But here's the thing that I know from my own life experience, and most people do, that is, they also have a sense of how the business is doing. They may not see the P&L, and they may not hear the chairman's report to the market or whatever, but in their gut, they think they know how the business is doing. So the truth of the business's actual current situation and what it's becoming is very important. And if they're suspecting that the business isn't doing well because no one's told them very much about it, they can see that they lost customer X, and they can see that there's budget cutting going on. But what about their sense of the business? Wouldn't it be lovely to have, if you have 100 employees, get some consensus among the 100 how the business is going from their perspective, and then you can design from there as far as being, the senior officers.
Yeah. So I think people will know this, that to give somebody a score or any number is meaningless unless you can compare it to something else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what our platform does really, really well. So you can very quickly compare different departments, different seniority levels, different genders, ages, all sorts of things. And we very often, I'd say pretty much nearly all the time, we see large differences in the perception of the organization's performance between different groups, different positions.
There you go.
Usually managers, leaders will have a very, very different perception to younger staff or older staff, or the men or the women or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it, Dave, comes down to better communication.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes it really is as simple as that. And what we see a lot of is one department scoring very well, other departments scoring poorly. Well, let's go and have a chat to that department that's scoring really well and find out what they're thinking and how they're thinking about stuff.
Yeah.
Take some of that information and some of that knowledge and those thoughts and plug it into another department.
Mm-hmm.
So it all comes down to a lot of it comes down to communication. The way that our platform is set up is it actually measures across 19 core attributes of business. So we did a bit of analysis work, looking at the corporate governance codes and the latest business thinking from around the world, and we realized that they were talking about 19 categories of a good sort of human-centric business. So these are things like accountability, a sense of belonging, emotional safety, values, purpose, strategy, risk, operational efficacy, lots of things like that. And then we also measure mental well-being as well, because that is such a core piece to the puzzle.
Oh yeah.
So all of these separate categories are interconnected. So strategy is interconnected to communication, and emotional safety is connected to trust, relational trust. And so often, and this is exactly as it should be in business and in life, you want such and such to improve. Well, actually, you don't think about. Well, let me put it like this. So and this is really conceptually how businesses work. At some point, somebody somewhere has noticed, and we all do it, that there are societal problems going on. And they want to do something about that. They've observed the world, there's a problem there, and they have come up with a solution to solve that problem. They tell their friends about it, and their friends go, that's a really great idea, we could help you do that. And that becomes a business with some staff in it, with some humans in it. The main focus of that business are the humans inside it, and they work together to solve that human problem for the benefits of other humans and, by a wider extent, society. What businesses focus on, though, is how much money they've made. Now, that for me is the wrong thing to focus on. Focus on solving the problems. The byproduct of that is making money, but don't focus on the money.
Right.
And that's exactly what our platform does. So, like, if you want better outcomes, don't focus on the outcomes. Focus on, or maybe the communication, because that's going to affect, increase the scores around relational trust and strategy and emotional safety and a sense of belonging.
So the condition, we think of inside and outside in organizations. Actually, it's a convenience to be able to say it as an outside and inside organizations. But if you talk about people who are working most closely together, call that the inside. What I'm hearing you say is that the more you know about how they view these 19 elements from the way they've responded to your survey, and then you can work that information around to the coaching side, the more likely you are to, I would say this, pick up internal problems, because there are always inside problems while you're trying to solve the world problem, the big problem.
That's a nice way of putting it.
But what I like about this, John, is that we're not ignoring the world problem in order to deal with the inside problem. What a problem is something that's yet to be known, and yet it's happening. So what do we need to know about this so that we can steer the happening to something more positive? But so many of the things that I'm picking up these days because of the COVID experiences, particularly the more committed employees, want to feel that they are indeed having an impact on that world problem, on the problem the company is founded to solve. They want to have it, and they want to know how it's working out. So that feeling of purpose. So if I'm going to be giving my life over to this business for X number of months or years, it's not just about the paycheck or whether I have an ergonomic chair. It's I want to be part of saying we've reduced the cost of this, or we've increased the benefit of that. Is that what I'm rambling here? But you got me thinking.
I don't think you are, because I mean, let's think about life for a moment. I mean, it took me about 40 years to realize this, but business is not a totally separate entity. It's not. Business is life, just in the same way that society is life, and community is life, and families and education and government. They are all collective nouns for groups of human beings, and the human beings inside those little buckets keep moving in between the buckets.
Yeah.
So businesses are just our community. They are community. They are families. They are governments. Everything is so much more interconnected than we really give it credit for. And unless we take the time to pause and stand back and just think about these things for a moment, we miss it, because we get so bogged down in our lives of getting the kids ready for school, getting in the car to the commute, going to work and doing our job that we do. Or we put that in there and we send that email there and that's our little box that we're in. Go and get the kids, feed them, take them to hockey, get them into bed, go to sleep, do the same thing again tomorrow. We just get trapped on that kind of rat race without really thinking about the bigger picture. But so does your work, particularly as it carried out through your coaches, does that break some of that down to help someone kind of pull the slats apart of that day in, day out, and say, oh, hey, they're paying attention to me. And hey, by the way, I've noticed this, that, and the other thing. Is there a bit of freeing up that happens? I hope so. Well, I mean, I certainly talk about it a lot. And but if we think about how many, I don't know the answer to this, but how many people are doing a job that they aren't truly excited about or aren't passionate about?
According to Gallup, about 70%
according to Gallup, 79%,
of the workforce. It's a huge number of people who are at best getting up and getting to work most of the time, even while they're there doing some things where there's engagement. But it's a very troubling number that Gallup's been studying for 40 years, and it's not looking better.
No, it's not. In fact, it's not looking any better at all. Now, that is an interesting stat. So it's 79% of the global workforce are disengaged, don't like going to work. Now, when you think about that, that actually means that 4 out of 5 people are turning up to work purely for a salary, not to do something they believe in, not to do something they're passionate about, not to do something they're excited about. Now, that is bad for business, right? Because you're not, if you've got people who aren't engaged at work, they're not as productive as they could be. No. And it's bad for, and when I say it's bad for business, what I really mean is it's multiple facets here, right? It's bad for the business owner, but it's bad for society, because if your business isn't being profitable, they're not making as much money. If you don't make as much money, you're not paying as much taxes as you possibly could.
That's right.
And paying taxes is a great privilege, because it goes into creating the environment that looks after us. But but also if you're disengaged at work and you're not doing a job you love, it's bad for you as well. Like you're
It's
if we talk
horrible.
about so your mental
There are
health
health
is
consequences.
absolutely, your mental health is going to be suffering to some degree. I'm not saying that you're going to be curled up on the floor in a ball crying, but you're not going to be happy about going to work. And that then, we want happy employees, because the happy employees go home to their families, create happy families, and happy families become happy communities, which is where you and I live, and also where we go to get our staff of the future. So it all these things are connected. It seems to make so much sense to me that we, and this is the fault of businesses. I think that businesses should be standing up in the street and saying, hello, this is who we are as a business, not what we do, not how much you're going to get paid. This is who we are. This is what we believe in. This is what the difference we're trying to make in the world. This is our purpose. This is our culture. This is how we're going to treat people. If you like the sound of that, come along and work for us. And it doesn't matter what your principles are, because every business is different, just like there are many, many different businesses, just like there are many, many different human beings. And, there are different sports fans, people who like walking on the beach, and people who like hang gliding, and people who like sports, and people who like chess. It doesn't matter. The chess people like to hang out with the chess people. The sports people can hang out with the sports people, and then everyone is in a better boat, going in a better direction, rather than jumping onto any boat that's paying them. I'm mixing up my analogies there, I must admit.
No, I somewhere in there there's a very happy person bouncing around and enjoying all of this. And I want to take that number 79, and I want to start seeing the forces of good bring those numbers down, and the numbers of people who are as the word is engaged in their businesses rises. Now, I'm pulling this back around the circle of our conversation. When you first made these early discoveries and found your very smart colleague, how did you figure it out? I mean, was there that moment where, you were walking on a beach in Guernsey, and down from the sky, came the golden finger and touched you on the forehead, so you got that inspiration? Or
well, I think the inspiration probably John did a lot of the figuring it out, and I just sort of sat there as a happy passenger and listened to him and said, yeah, that sounds like it makes sense. We're still figuring it out as we go. I mean, what we're trying to do is actually a really difficult thing to do, and it's not simple. And there's a lot of I'm going to say, a lot of competitors out there who will very confidently stand up and say, yeah, we've nailed it. We know exactly what we're doing.
Yeah.
We can have some certainty around, the validity of our data. Yeah. I don't believe that for 1 second.
Yeah, here are the 5 things. You don't have to know anymore. Here are the 5 things you need to know. We in the management education world have lived with the 5 things for a long while. Yeah. And our students say, look, if there's only 5 things I need to know, why do I need to take a whole course of study here? And our response is, because those 5 things are just 5 things. Look behind them, see what's there. If you're not looking behind to see if there's some deep thought and some data to support it, then you're going to be, there'll only be one thing that's pointing at you, and it'll be the middle finger, because that's the way a lot of the business literature, if you will, gets written. The editor says, I don't want a big thoughtful book here. I just want one big thing that you can tell people that they need to know. And this, by the way, was said to us by an editor to Peter and me when we had a very big, thoughtful book that we wanted him to publish. No, we're not doing that anymore. So that's my grievance. I want people to understand that there's a lot more fun and a lot more growth in going along and learning as you go, and sharing those insights and tweaking and fixing even your software, which
so our software gets reviewed every 6 months by some business psychologists to just make sure that it's working as it should, and it evolves over time. We're letting the data guide us, and of course, the more data we get in, the more we can analyze that data. But we've got some some core principles that we're working off. So totally transparent, totally honest all the time. We allow all of our customers to kind of see all of the data. We can drill down. So we at some level, our data is quite simple. So we can answer questions. The 3 simple questions we answer is, do you have the right staff at the right time doing the right thing? Is there a comprehensive plan for the future, and do your people know it and understand it? And are your business processes fit for purpose and sustainable in the long term? So
that's those pretty fundamentals.
Pretty fundamentals. Then we come down into our 19 categories. We've got 5 mental health categories. So you can get quite granular. You can drill down into those categories and see the actual statements that we're asking that have been tagged with each category. That was sort of like our best guess, sort of to start. What we've realized with early analysis and unpicking and interviewing and talking to staff and leaders is that actually we're pretty close. We were pretty close, and you can actually get right down into the weeds. And the statements that we use are very, very simple. They're almost binary, almost. So you can answer them very, very quickly.
What would be an example of just off the top of your head? Anyway.
Yeah, off the top of my head, our rates of pay fair across my company.
Yeah.
Do I feel emotionally safe at work? Do I think that the leadership team act with integrity? So
are these yes or no's?
No, they're on a scale 1 to 10.
Okay.
But they're almost yes or no's.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, they're not.
Yeah, once you're gone to one end or the other, you're at the yes or no say. And now, do they get to comment on their answer, or on some of them, or all of them?
There is some commenting available in the survey as well, but most of it is data scores, and so the statements are very simple to understand and to answer. The way that the interconnections work is slightly more complicated. So each of the categories, let's say a sense of belonging, will be tagged with a various number of statements, and those statements that are tagged with sense of belonging may be tagged in other categories as well.
Oh, I get it now. When you mean a statement, it's not something that they actually wrote out necessarily. It's a
statement they have to agree or disagree with. Yes, sorry.
Got it. I got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And so of 100 employees in one coach's company times all of those answers per person now parsed out and interconnected to so many combinations I can't even begin to imagine. Certainly you put a border on that, or the machine would be out there looking forever, to try to finish all the interconnections. But that gives you a readout, right?
That gives us a readout, and we've got a lovely dashboard, which I think you've seen, which is very, it's quite simple, and you can see what's going on, with graphs and numbers and little blobs of color, and very easily and visually compare different departments, you against another company. It's good fun.
Now, as I want to get to you.
Okay.
You said at one point that you have started and lost and started and changed for up to some years and before you started this. How are you feeling about doing this? Is this one that you're feeling really, really good about as far as continuing to build it? Or are you not starting this in order to lose it, I'm sure?
No, so this is,
But you're an entrepreneur, so there you go.
I am. Yeah, someone called me that for the first time a few years ago, and it really, I felt quite uncomfortable about it, but I suppose they're right.
No, it's a risk taker of the best kind. Yeah,
I am definitely a risk taker. So I never really fitted in too well at school. I kind of got away with school. I didn't really try very hard, but when I was younger, I had this amazing memory. Like I could remember everything. So that kind of really helped, obviously. And then I never really fitted into like the corporate world. And I've never been very successful when I've gone for job interviews, and I can almost feel myself bristling a little bit in the interview. And they give you the handbook, and I'm like, oh, I'm never going to comply with all these rules. That's pointless. So I left university, and I started my own business, just a very simple personal training business in Southwest London. I was fortunate enough to meet a business coach, and I ended up fitness training him and his wife and his two daughters at the time, who were teenagers. And he said to me one day, he said, "Look, John, you're a nice guy. I like you a lot. You're a decent personal trainer. You are shit at running a business. Please let me help. Please let me help you."
Could he have been a little more concise?
Yeah.
So that didn't sound good. Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, well, thank you, Les." So I said, "Okay, well."
Did he take you under his wing?
He took me under his wing, and he very quickly, and he's a wonderful guy. We still work together now, and
that's great.
25 years later, and he started drawing little models for me, little business models. He used to walk around with three pens: a red pen, a black pen, and a blue felt tip pen, and he was always models, which was great for me because I'm quite a visual person. And I very quickly realized that I loved how the business works, more so than actually doing the work inside the business. And that was really the start of things for me. And yeah, haven't looked back since. So I view Coefficient as sort of almost like I'm coming out of university now. I've had sort of like 20 years of learning and making mistakes and getting things wrong. And I'm excited about Coefficient. It ticks a lot of boxes for me. I think, finally I'm able to do some real good in the world, where I'm helping businesses to perform better, to look after their staff more. That ripples out to communities.
Yes,
it's an online platform, so we can affect a lot of businesses all
anywhere
over the world,
in the world,
not just in one location. And I'm working with some of the greatest, smartest people I've ever had the pleasure to meet.
Wonderful. There will be investors coming on board. Are there investors coming on board? Are you guys trying to work investor free and keep it in your own pocket? How's it? I'm pushing a little more here because I think it's got tremendous potential, and I don't have a penny to invest in it. But I would invest. I would invest with what you just described. It's really a chance to do some good in the world in a different way than is usually done, and it will get into the visceral aspect of a person's business life in a way that I have not heard before. And I've been studying this for a long time, over 50 years. So
thank you for that.
My question is, are people banging on your door right now with their checkbooks?
No, unfortunately they're not.
Well, Guernsey, who can find Guernsey? It's an island.
Yeah,
you gotta get a bridge there or something.
Maybe
you have a bridge. I don't know.
No, we don't have a bridge. We had a very small amount of early investment, a very small amount. Searching for money is interesting because it's hard, and it's all to do with confidence. And we spent maybe the first 3 or 4 months trying to find money, searching for money, and it's so depressing. And the balance of the relationship is off for me, because they're the ones with the money, and you jump through this hoop and then this hoop and then this hoop and then come back. So you go off and you jump through the hoops, and then you come back and like, no, I've got a few more hoops for you. And I'm just like, oh, to hell with this.
Yeah, it's a game.
It's a game. So now, obviously, companies need money to survive and to grow. And when you grow, you need money before you can actually grow. We could use investment money. The trouble with that is you've got to give them something. You've got to give away.
Well, I was going to say, then they'll start saying, well, but I don't want these phrases on the survey, or I don't, they can get right into the, in these times, everyone is so litigious, so ready to be jumping on other people. I get it,
Better investors are customers, because they pay you without wanting a slice of your company.
That's
And
right. That's right.
I love the idea of win-win-win-win situations if you can do it. So
Mhm.
can we offer a great service to our customers? Yes, we can. Are they happy to pay for it? Yes, they are. That's great for us. So can that money then be reinvested back into our company to help us grow? Yes, it absolutely can.
Mhm.
So those are the types of relationships that I like.
So now it is, Mark, it is finding more coaches and others who can then bring your survey out to their businesses and get the thing going. So it's about how to get the word out there. And I'd love to go on because I'm my time budget here, but just give me a glimpse at how you're finding more customers.
Okay, so I network a lot. I've always put a huge value on relationships. I love meeting people. I'm very happy to talk about sort of pretty much anything. I usually get on with most people.
Oh, you're proving your point in this conversation. So
so I've spent the last 6 months just meeting business coaches, companies of coaches, and building those relationships.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah.
Bringing in the sheaves, the sheaves.
And meeting great people like you, Dave, who say, "Hey, come and talk on my podcast," which has been a real privilege.
Yeah, well, it's been my not only privilege, but I love to do this so I can learn something, and I've learned so much. I whet my appetite to learn a great deal more about coefficient. And when I feature this, there's a very fine website that John Hibbs and his colleagues have developed, so you can get right in there and you can see some of the graphical representations of what he's talking about. And I hope just tons of people say, it's about time. This is going to work. This is what we need. It's about time for John Hibbs and company to come into our lives through our consultants and our coaches. So, that's a commercial. That's the best I can do to invest in your business.
Thank you. You're excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll do this again. I want more, so I'll be back for more.
Then I'd love to come back, Dave. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Practice Podcast, where we discuss practice with a capital P. If you'd like to hear more, listen in on Spotify, Automatic, and Apple Podcasts, or go to inactionresearch.com/podcast-page. And if you'd like to learn more about social inaction and the nature of practice, head over to inactionresearch.com for more information. Thank you for supporting this show. We look forward to hearing from you soon.
Oh, and one more thing. How could I forget? The book on practice as a way of being is available now in digital form, something that would be new, like podcasting to many of us. And it's a great way of learning more and more about what this podcast presented when Peter Vale and I originated it several years ago. So please come to www.mylibrary.world/practice, and you'll see what I mean. Thank you.